and welcome to what I'll call DNewTech on the road. Before we get started, I want to thank all the sponsors that make this evening possible. Schedule, reminding people of their appointments and making it easier to fill scheduled appointments. Atomic Object, world-class software products. Mid-Michigan Innovation Center up in Midland and Traverse City both, connecting entrepreneurs and resources. StarGuard in Grand Rapids, 2 $5,000 rewards a week, and it just grows and grows and grows. Bizdom, Detroit and Cleveland, incubator for IT-based companies, and Quicken Loans in Detroit, only the 3rd largest provider of residential loans in the USA, and they're all supporters of our activities, which is pretty cool. We definitely want to thank our site sponsor for this evening, but we're going to bring him up since we're going to be talking with him. Jay? Woo! Jay, thank you very much. I do appreciate you hosting us.
All right, you're in the hot seat.
You're in the hot seat, yeah. So the format for tonight will be Jay and I just going to chat for 10 or 15 minutes. I have some questions. Todd, if you'll keep a timer, why don't you give us about 15 minutes? Then we'll open it up to the floor. You can do that. So Jay, Tiple Office, thank you for hosting us. How long have you been here? How many folks do you have? And give us a quickie version of what it is you folks do here.
Okay. Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for coming and welcome to Digital Roots. We've been in this space for about 2 months. Any day you can come in, you can see contractors still working on it, so it's still a little bit of a work in progress. We selected this space because we wanted to target a downtown area. Northville offers a lot of great advantages. But for us, this space was unique because we have a lot of IT engineers that live in the Ann Arbor area, as well as folks in suburban Detroit that didn't necessarily want to make the commute to downtown Detroit, which we were targeting as well. We came across this space, and the building owner's been great, really customizing it for our needs. Having access to nature and the natural light was really important and cool for our employees. We do a lot within the community, and we got a big health and wellness initiative, so there's a gym actually in our building as well. So a lot of big advantages there. Our staff is a young staff. We've got probably the average age of about 26. So this is kind of a unique design environment where it's very collaborative and works very well. We've got about 30 employees that work out of here. Spend a lot of time flying sites as well. So on any given day, there's probably 20 or so employees.
Okay.
One of our companies is called Digital Roots, this is the headquarters for that. And we provide social media monitoring systems for large brands. So a lot of the local brands, automotive companies use our software to understand what customers are saying about them online, whether it's on Twitter, Facebook, or third-party discussion sites. Our software is out there extracting all that information from the web and then also serving it up to them to be able to respond to those consumers. And the reason that they're responding to them is because these consumers are expressing interest in their products, so it's a lead conversion opportunity, where they may have a question or a complaint about a product or experience, and that's leading to a lot of retention opportunities and just overall online reputation, because we as consumers, our first destination when we're looking for information is to go to a search browser and find out what other people have said about that product or if anybody else has experienced that same question. And our software helps put the brand into that conversation and stay part of it.
I'm going to circle back to that one in just a minute. Your background, I noticed Western Michigan, 7 years at GM, including the Automotive Strategy Board, and then Digital Roots. Tell us a little bit, because a lot of accomplished entrepreneurs, would-be entrepreneurs, failed entrepreneurs like me, doing the same thing. So talk a little bit about your journey.
So for me, the corporate experience was really unique to understand how a large brand operates and how they focus on their customers. So a lot of my experience there was in customer support and marketing type initiatives. One of the things that they spent a lot of time on was reacting to customer stuff, reacting to issues that they're having with their products at GM. And there's a little bit more of I think an easier way to be a little bit more predictive or proactive. And that's really what consumers' interests are, is finding the brands that can support us with our product experiences better. So we had this vision that we could get the brands putting more information online so that they could get self-support rather than having to call into a call center talk to somebody that might be offshore, talk to somebody over email that's a scripted response, things that aren't very user-friendly from a consumer standpoint. So the brands never really took that initiative to get more information out there. So that's when I decided to say, you know, this is good enough opportunity where we're going to pursue this on our own, and finally jumped off and took the chance to start this venture. And it took a while. It took a while to get it started because this was in 2008, 2009, when not a lot of brands wanted to participate publicly addressing complaints from consumers.
Yeah.
So it took a while for brands to really adapt that this is going to be a competitive advantage if they do it right. But now we're just starting to see that industry really pick up, where brands are getting a lot of attention and recognition for when they do those things well. And now we've got a lot of brands coming to us every day that want to do the same thing.
Okay. Because that was one of the questions I found out this morning. You know, everyone has employees, everyone wants customer money. Why don't people just listen on their own and react?
Yeah, you know, I think it's tough in a large organization where, you know, they have a lot of different moving pieces, and we deal with this every day. We've got a client prospect we're meeting with tomorrow, and they're just saying, you know, we thought marketing was handling social media, then we thought communications and PR was, and now all of a sudden customer care is saying the CEO is sending me complaints from people on the web, and we're not responding. So a lot of our orchestration in a large brand too is just to help get those pieces talking together, where I don't think they're able to execute that strategy on their own or understand how other brands have done that well. So we do a lot of setup and strategy and consulting work for these brands before they can use our software in more of an operational situation.
Okay. You started the company with X amount of capital, which you knew would last you Z amount of time.
Yeah.
So those are your two constraints. What was your biggest fear and your greatest challenge while you were trying to launch the company between those two constraints?
Well, it's great. I did an event with Tom where we talked about this, the runway.
Okay.
You know, that was some of the best advice I got when I jumped off into this was, you can have the best idea, you can have the best people that you're working with, but if you run out of runway before this thing takes off, it doesn't matter how big of an idea it was. So we were very, very conservative early on. I don't think we started hiring employees until we had a really solid business deal prospect lined up. One of my second, third employees back there, still with us today, fresh out of college. He was like one of the first guys that we hired, and we were probably only a month away from getting our first contract, which fortunately for us was GM,
Okay.
which is where I used to work.
Yeah.
And we were able to conserve capital long enough where we spent a lot of time engineering the solution, making sure that it would work in that environment, making sure it would do all the things that we're professing to this company it could do, but we didn't build up the fixed costs too quick.
Right.
So even some of the IT guys that are with us today were working part-time and nights and weekends, just kind of bootstrapping this initiative. And anywhere that you can conserve cash, I mean, we worked out of the Southfield Public Library every time we need to get together.
Yep.
We worked out of my basement, you know, a couple times, and you just can't take on fixed costs like this until you really have that revenue stream, or at least a really good indication of what that revenue stream is.
Okay.
And the advice I'd give to anybody else is spend a lot of time with your targeted consumers and get feedback and really gauge that probability of being successful to be sold to that target audience, because we were very nervous that even though these individuals at a corporation wanted to do it, we didn't know if the corporations could get their act together to actually start doing it well.
Yeah.
And that was our biggest risk.
Okay. So what was the biggest challenge or unmet desire? Well, you already did address that. That's right. What's so unique about you that customers come to you versus competition? Because everyone has competition.
Yeah. Well, we were early pioneers in this field, so I think we have a reputation of being thought leaders in this area. But to me, our competitive advantage is our people. The team that we've built, I think our customers really want to work with us. I mean, I think they have a lot of suppliers, and we've always tried to position ourselves really as a partner to them. And we do all the extra things where we focus not only on their customer satisfaction, but we focus on client satisfaction before anything else. So what are those customers' needs and helping them through situations? Because if we start drawing hard lines everywhere, they do have a lot of choices.
Yeah.
And we need to start developing those relationships with our clients in the way that we would want to be treated by the people that support us. So I think that's something that's unique. That's the feedback that we continually get. that they really enjoy working with us. They enjoy the innovation that our team brings and the thought leadership. And I think that can be a big competitive difference when software capabilities start to get very similar.
Yeah. Good. Good. Let me open it up to the floor. Any questions from the floor? Yes, ma'am.
Real quick one. You gather information from Twitter, Facebook, and wherever for a target company.
Yeah.
Are there any concerns about privacy? Wherein, you're taking my Facebook comment, and I'm supposing that when there's a reply back from, say, a GM or whoever, back to those particular people.
The extraction that we do from the web is all publicly available data. So we don't target Facebook personal pages where we can't access that information because of privacy restrictions. So everywhere where we're extracting data, it is in a public forum. So I think a lot of people recognize their settings in Twitter. They're broadcasting this to the world and it's available to everybody. A lot of brands had that concern initially. They would say, how's this customer going to feel about us reaching out to them? But if you're offering value to somebody, the customers really embrace that brand participation. And I think it really helps set that up as a competitive differentiator for the brands that do. And we've never had a customer ask, how did you find me? Because it is publicly available information. So, but it's a great question. I mean, that was actually something Jackie, our head of marketing, we were talking about today. It's really the privacy and legal issues and legislation in this area. I think that is a big risk to a business like ours where we are pulling a lot of information. If something was drastic to change in that way, it's one of our top risks as a business.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a bit more on how you landed General Motors? How did you find out who to talk to? How long did it take? And how was the legal situation?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like when I was at GM, it was kind of unheard of to do business with somebody that had no revenue, no employees, right? They go through quite a gut check, I think, when they're verifying suppliers' capabilities. We were fortunate to approach them in a time where it was kind of post-bankruptcy and they were willing to take some risks, I think, in these emerging areas. So I had a log of about 31 meetings that I had with people inside GM across their agencies, the marketing, the PR, community.
Now, this is your knowledge, basically, of the structure, or how did you get those 31 meetings?
Oh, you start conversations with one and they say, well, I might not be the right person, but you can talk to this person, and just, over a 4-month period, just continuing to get moved around. But I was fortunate. I had, as you referenced, I did the Automotive Strategy Board support role. And at the time that I was in that role, they had an individual, Steve Gursky, that was an outside advisor to the organization, to the CEO and CFO. So him and I worked very closely together, and now he's the vice chairman of GM. So I finally called him and said, you're actively involved now in the day-to-day operations. I've got this particular opportunity. I just want to present you with some of the facts. And I explained to him that there were a lot of people doing things in social media, but there were still a lot of customers falling through the cracks. And this is when the organization was very focused. They were getting very focused on their customer and the experiences that their customers had because of the heightened sensitivity from bankruptcy. And we went out to breakfast, and rather than trying to demonstrate something on my computer, I printed off a stack of customer complaints from the web. And this was about a 2-inch stack of papers. And I asked him if I could review a couple of them with him to show him the examples of what was falling through the cracks. And he asked how long the time period was that from, and I explained to him that those were just from yesterday's extraction of the data. So we went through the first one, which was kind of staged in the pile, but it was an Escalade hybrid. And it's an individual talking about a $75,000 vehicle that the company wasn't supporting him in the warranty of his battery, his hybrid batteries in that vehicle. And he went at great lengths to explain this now. So this is an individual buying that expensive product, explaining to the world the problems he's having with that product warranty. And he read that one, and that was about it. And that's next week we were live. So that's when we had to do a little bit of scramble. We started hiring, and we're off and running.
I've heard many a time that if you really want to get a problem solved, send a note off to the CEO. The CEO detests getting notes like that.
So he's
storming out.
They really do, and they use them as examples, and everybody that they talk to.
And so he cleared the way through their legal?
Yeah, so the purchasing group and everybody, there was.
So you just all fell in line?
It was at the time, this was in 2009, and it was a product that they didn't have competitive set. So we didn't have to go through that competitive sourcing, and it was positioned as a pilot, right? So they said, you've got to take some risks as well, that this software is going to work in the way that you think. So we took that risk. We took a 3-month risk where we were losing money on it, but we knew that it was going to work and it was going to demonstrate great results. And, 3.5 years later, they're still a great client of ours, and hopefully, they do the same with us as a partner.
Have any of the other OEMs approached you yet, or is GM still your only?
Yeah,
it
it wasn't too long after we started supporting GM that the phone started, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of the natural progression. Once an industry sees their competitors doing something,
Yes.
they want to get an idea of how they're doing it. And shortly after that, we were contacted by Ford and Chrysler, and fortunately, they're great clients of ours today as well.
Great. Any other questions?
How do you keep a competitive set when in general agencies, they don't allow competitors to be within one agency? How do you keep lines of definition separate from the GM team, from the Ford team?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities in the capability of our software at each of those clients, but we also provide a certain level of professional services and consulting on top of the software, and those teams are dedicated and separated for each client. So there's no cross correlation of what the GM account management team is doing for strategy work with our Ford team or Chrysler team. But the software is very similar under the.
Are those individual teams housed, if you will, at the OEMs?
Some of them are.
Okay.
Some of them are dedicated to that and reside in their facilities.
Okay.
How do you decide which prospects to target? Is it by company size or revenue or?
Yeah, great question. What we tend to focus on, because of the way our software works, is volume of conversation online. So we want to target those brands that it's kind of a cross-section of like passion, customer passion for that product, whether that product or service really fits into like a lifestyle. We tend to see a lot of volume of conversation. So where there's that, I guess, intersection of those 2 points, you see a larger volume. So today, like iPhone or consumer electronics, something that's a big part of our lifestyle and we're very passionate about as consumers, that's huge volume online. Same thing with like automotive brands. But we've received RFPs from companies like Colgate, and I love to give this example because it was like, hey, believe it or not, nobody's talking about your toothpaste online, right? We're not out there saying, hey, when's Colgate going to come out with the new total? But they're talking about that in volumes about a must-have. Or, another industry that we're very focused on right now is sports and media. And we think about how many people talk about a sports franchise online. I mean, that's all they're doing is speculating all week or debating what happened during the game and things like that. And that's another area where we can drive tremendous value for a brand to understand what the voice of the fan is, not necessarily the voice of the customer.
In the middle.
You seem to have had a fairly successful corporate career. What made you decide to go the entrepreneurial path? Or what was the tipping point for you?
Yeah, for me it was all in my personal lifestyle. When I was in that strategy board role, I was given another opportunity to be an executive over a global area. And at the time, I had twins that were about a year old. And literally, this is 2007 when GM's heading into bankruptcy. And I was working 7 days a week, from 5 in the morning till 9 at night. And not that those hours are unheard of, but I was never home to support my family. And I knew I needed to make a difference because no matter the level of effort I put into GM, I was never going to see that come back out of that company for me. So even if I can put that level of effort into something, I wanted some higher reward for myself. And I also was very frustrated with the day-to-day issues that I dealt with at an organization like that. I was never really doing work. I was spending a lot of time in meetings and living on a BlackBerry, right? I was never actually at my computer during work. And that was frustrating. It was like spending time preparing for meetings, preparing for a presentation, preparing for this. Not really the productive stuff that I find rewarding. So it was it was a combination of those 2 things. I wanted to be more available for my young family, as well as I wanted to be more productive with the level of effort I was putting in and be able to see that return for myself. Now, fast forward 5 years, 6 years, I'm making less money, but I'm super excited about what we're building. and what we're building as a team and seeing my team grow. So that, I'm fulfilling a lot of that. And I get home almost every night, take my kids to either soccer or football, or, put them to bed. But I'm also working all night still, but I can be flexible with my hours. And that was probably the best decision I made, because I wouldn't have been able to sustain that lifestyle that I was carrying previously.
Yeah, so when you landed your first big customer, how did you assign value to the product that you had or the service you provided? Because it was kind of a new thing and they didn't know what was their payback period. How did you figure that out?
Yeah, for us, it's a little bit easier of an equation where companies like that value, I guess, the value of the consumer, right? The lifetime value of this consumer. If they lose me at 26 years old, that's $1,000 as an automotive brand. So when we can put software out there that'll help catch that customer at their weakest moment and try and retain them, it can improve their retention efforts in a significant way, right? The same is if somebody has an expression of interest in that product, we can convert them into a new customer or get them into a new product or service, and that has immediate ROI as well. So while it's a little bit difficult to quantify the reputation elements online and getting involved in the conversation, we do have two very tangible things from retention and revenue. And those things are easy to translate for a client. We can predict how many people, or we can forecast to them how many people complain on an average daily basis about that product.
Do you find complaints about dealerships, and how do you address those?
Yeah, so I think that's something that's a little bit unique to the automotive world. Is this retail environment is very, very complex, and dealers have different levels of capabilities. What they're doing from a brand standpoint, largely for most of the OEMs, is addressing that as a brand and then working back channels to get the dealer involved with that information back to the dealer. Where the dealer might not necessarily have a social presence to get involved out there publicly, a lot of things are happening in the background to make sure that they can.
Are you monitoring dealer, like Twitter accounts or Facebook pages?
No. And the reality is the dealers, just different levels of capabilities. It would take way too much support from us to support one dealer with the application than they're willing to pay.
Although there are a couple of large dealership chains now, like a Penske, that might be forward-thinking enough. So when you get tired of it, we've taken all the money you can from the GMs and the Fords and whatnot, the Penske's and whatnot. But you're right, a single dealership point would never do it. But the large chains that are centrally organized might be different.
Yeah, that's one of the things we work on every day. It's like inside this data that we're pulling from the web, we're trying to identify where this customer is, right? A lot of people do provide information as far as where they are when they're posting something, that location they posted from. So if we can get high accuracy to that, and I can understand that you just posted you wanted a Ford F-150, and I can put you at the closest dealership, Tom Wolcott, then we have a problem. But the reality is, in a lot of these data sources, it's very low accuracy to matching the location with the individual as to where they're at that point in time. But I think we're going to see that evolve. And then it allows you to do localized services like a dealer would be interested in. Because a Tom Holzman's not going to be interested in somebody in Phoenix that said something about a product.
Time for one more. Go ahead.
What methods did you use in hiring employees and assembling Uniqueness?
And what was the second part?
Assemble a team that you
Assemble a team.
Oh. Yeah, so I was really fortunate. I had a friend that had recently retired and had a lot of business and organizational development skills. And I was just talking with Tim there. Tim's his friend from church. He stopped by tonight. But Mike had a lot of background in building teams and building high-performing organizations, and that evaluation of talent and skills to the success of I guess the alignment of our responsibilities. So we spent a lot of time working to understand the work ethic of the individual, because we weren't going to find people that had work experience necessarily in the field that we were participating in. So we really need to understand how they pursue their work, how they organize their work, and aspects like that, and trying to put together the strongest team possible where everybody feels that everybody's carrying their own weight.
On that, we're going to bring it to a halt. We'll have more time for Q&A after the end of the program. But This has been great. Jay, thank you very much. I think the video is still ready. We're going to go ahead and start with Brad Clark. Brad is definitely strong into the work-life balance.